This week on the For Virginia podcast, we lambast this week's tax fraud vote, cover the latest in next year's congressional races, and feature an interview with newly elected delegate Elizabeth Guzman. This is the For Virginia podcast, episode 25 for the week ending December 2nd, 2017. My name is Michael Brandon Wade.
And I am David Washington. We got a lot going on tonight, including a special interview with Elizabeth Guzman. We're going to talk about the fallout of the November elections, the upcoming congressional elections, but first, talk about the tax bill.
Yes, the disastrous tax bill. You know, I don't know about you, Dave. I woke up first thing this morning, grabbed my phone, trying to look and see what was going on. And I don't know about you, but I think I speak for everybody that are just totally disgusted and disappointed with what the Senate has done.
Absolutely. It started for me last night. Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker was so emboldened he read the entire thing on Facebook Live. I was like, "Are you serious, man?"
The
but
bill?
It just showed how crazy he showed how thick it was, and then he went by each one. He went through each one line by line. My first thought was, okay, if I ever become a senator, I don't know. I'm like, do I have to read all that? Because, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, he was reading like subsection A of 1.0, I of 1.1. I'm like, oh my goodness, man. And just to get through it took him forever to just get through the legalese genre of all the sections and subsections to even really get to the crux of the matter. But he sat on Facebook Live and read that whole thing, man. And I seen what the Democrats were doing. I seen that another gentleman, a Democrat from Montana, he was on Facebook Live as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about, saying that the citizens of Montana deserve better. It's apparent that the only people that actually read the bill were the lobbyists.
Right.
I think Elizabeth Warren was posting pictures of some of these pages that had like handwritten notes in the margins, and it was like over 500 pages. Nobody had a chance to read it. There were a few provisions that were put up by Democrats. I think one to the effect of saying that corporations would be required to reinvest some of this money into worker wages instead of just sending it back to the shareholders, and that was struck down.
It was struck down.
Another provision to protect Medicaid struck down as well. So it is completely apparent that the Republicans in Congress are beholden only to I think somebody called it the Donor Protection Act or something like that.
That's what it is. It is 100% their donors, brother.
Absolutely.
To me, this whole thing is the Koch brothers and the people of their ilk, and they said it. And Republicans that have been brave enough to be quoted as saying, hey, our donors have told us, hey, you guys passed this tax bill or come 2018, we're cutting you off. And it's just that simple. And that's what because they feel, because you got to understand from the Republican donor perspective, they're saying, look, we've put millions and millions and millions of dollars into your campaigns. You have to give us something. We're not just writing you checks because we like you. No, we writing you checks because we want this tax bill. We got you guys. We gave you guys control of Congress. Give us what we want, and that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things I saw was that they're getting rid of the tax deduction for state and local taxes. So like the money that we spend to fund public education is no longer tax deductible, but there's a provision in this bill that allows deductions for private school tuitions.
Right.
Yeah. My Twitter feed is off the hook lately. And to think that they did this in the dead of night with no accountability. Why? And I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of the whole Flynn Russia thing, but the whole reason this vote came up today or last night was because of the Flynn news. McConnell scheduled the vote after it had become apparent that Flynn was going to flip on Trump, and we could talk about that for a while, but I'm not going to get too far into that. What I want to tell everybody is that don't give up, because the congressional bills, the one that was passed by the House and the one that was passed by the Senate, are two completely separate bills. There is going to be some kind of conference reconciliation, and they're going to have to vote on this again, probably both the House and Senate. So we're going to have to call Congress. If you live in CD2 or Barbara Comstock or Dave Bratt or any of the other Republican GOP members in Virginia, we will have a chance to speak up again and make our voices heard again.
Because definitely now, because the good news is that now it's out there, and now you have people who are a lot smarter than me and Mike, who are going to break both of these bills down.
Speak for yourself, David.
And now they're going to be able to break these things down, and they're going to be able to really talk about the impact, because you got to remember, a lot of folks, the so-called experts on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, they were basically going off of what they thought was going to be in the bill. They were basically trying to estimate and guesstimate, but now everything's in black and white now, both the House and the Senate. So now people are really going to be able to really get to the meat of this bill and really see the impact that it's going to have on middle class and working families. And from what we're seeing right now, just from the beginning of the top of the level, is right now, this is really going to hurt working class people. It's really going to have an impact on college students. And they're saying that people's me and Mike we both have kids, we both have young kids, and they're already saying our kids are going to be paying for this stuff. It's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, and for anybody that doesn't already know it, trickle down economics does not work. It has not worked in decades. I will argue with any conservative about this. Reagan gets quoted a lot as having cut taxes, and the thing about Reagan cutting taxes was that they had to immediately go into deficit spending just to keep the economy from crashing, and then they wound up raising taxes later on. A lot of right-wing people that like to talk about Reagan cutting taxes forget that part of it, and so. You look at what happened in Kansas. Governor Brownback basically bankrupted the states. They can't pay for their roads. They can't pay for schools. And, that's the same thing that they're trying to do here. So they say, this is going to spur the economy. It's going to create job growth and blah, blah, blah. What's going to happen in the next couple of years is that it's not. And then they're going to be all crazy about the deficit again, because Democrats will probably have taken power by 2020, I'm sure, when this thing starts cratering. And as Marco Rubio has been quoted as saying, this is the first step in austerity measures. You look at what happened during the Thatcher government in England. They're going to start cutting Medicaid. They're going to start cutting the welfare state, because they're not going to have, the federal government is going to be broke. It's the whole Republican concept of, starve the government until it's small enough to drown in the bathtub. And that's exactly what they're going for.
Right, and Forbes magazine sent out a survey to all the top CEOs in the country, asking them what were they going to do with this tax, with these tax breaks that they were going to get, and none of them came back with, "Or we're going to raise salaries for our employees. We're going to create jobs. This is going to spur job creation." It was about taking that money and basically putting it in their stock. Giving to their shareholders.
The markets took off.
Right.
There's
right.
They know what's up.
Right, they know what's going on, and that's what it's about. It's about writing big fat checks to the CEOs, and it has absolutely nothing to do with investing in their employees and investing in their companies to try to create more jobs. That's always been a fantasy of trickle down economics. Trickle down economics, like you said, Mike, has never worked. And I'm saying this from I like to call I am a political scientist, because that's why I got my degree in. I am a political scientist. But as a political scientist, we talk about, you test things over time. And if you test trickle down economics over time, it has not worked in the way that the Republicans have tried to sell it to us. It hasn't.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back. We're going to talk about upcoming federal elections. This is the For Virginia podcast. Stay tuned.
I'm David Washington.
I'm Mike Wade, and we're back with the For Virginia podcast.
For Virginia is a Virginia political action committee focused on supporting progressive causes and candidates at the local and state level. Our podcast is meant to provide you with news and analysis of politics across the state, helping you get the information you need to be an informed citizen, battle right-wing propaganda, and help progressive organize and achieve where we are most needed.
That's right. And we've got a lot to cover tonight. We still have an interview with a special guest interviewer who spoke with Elizabeth Guzman earlier this month, late November, rather. It's December already. Can't believe it. Merry Christmas, or Mueller Christmas. Treason's greetings.
I want to say happy holidays because the president says I can't say happy holidays. I got to say Merry Christmas. So I'm saying happy holidays, everybody.
All right. Again, thanks for listening. We appreciate everybody's support with these podcasts. Labor of love. We do what we can to help counteract all the right-wing spin out there. We're going to talk about federal elections. Obviously, as a political action committee, we're focused on local elections, which we have plenty coming up next year. But we do want to talk about what's coming up in the federal space. Dave, you've got some news about the Senate race that's coming up next year. Go ahead.
Yes, Virginia Republicans are anticipating that a state lawmaker will join a GOP primary race to challenge U.S. Senator Tim Kaine. The new challenger would be Delegate Nicholas. The new challenger would be Delegate Nicholas Freitas. He's an Iraq combat veteran, first elected to the General Assembly in 2015 and easily reelected this year. Freitas would join Corey Stewart, chairman of the Prince William Board County of Supervisors, in the GOP nomination. I find this very interesting, not necessarily because of Mr. Freitas, showing that he's a combat veteran. I'm quite sure that he's a very capable young gentleman. But my issue would be Corey Stewart. Corey Stewart running for Senate. I think that I'm glad that someone's running against him, and I'm quite sure that he won't be the last. I'm quite sure it'll probably be several people that officially announce that they're going to be running against Corey Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, because we still have Laura Ingraham and, gosh darn it, I'm having a blank. Carly Fiorina.
Yes.
I haven't heard those names lately, but before the November 17th election, those two were constantly being thrown out there. So go ahead and tell us more about Mr. Freitas. Ridiculous.
Should Freitas announce he will face a bombastic primary opponent in Stewart, who is the chairman of who was the chairman of Donald Trump's presidential campaign in Virginia, and has pledged to run a vigorous and ruthless campaign against Kaine. In a June primary, Stewart narrowly lost a GOP nomination for governor against Ed Gillespie, who then lost to the general election to, of course, Democrat Ralph Northam.
Absolutely. So that's going to be interesting. The other name, and this is completely unsubstantiated, but Scott Taylor. I don't know if you've heard anything. I've heard rumblings that he might do it, but I think that would be disastrous from the Republican standpoint to have Taylor drop out of what is potentially a swing district in CD2. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But is there anything else about this state Senate race that not state Senate but federal Virginia Senate race that you want to mention before we get into the congressional districts?
I just believe that this race is going to be a referendum on Corey Stewart, and it's going to be a referendum on the Republican Party as a whole in the state of Virginia, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is truly going to be where your priorities lie. Are we going to just vote for Corey Stewart or support Corey Stewart because he's a Trumpite, or are we going to be serious and try to bring out serious candidates? And we know Corey Stewart is extremely controversial with the whole Confederate flag issue, and he's been very boastful about his pride. That to me, he's a white nationalist. Just put it just plain and simple. Mm-hmm. Corey Stewart is a white nationalist and a white supremacist. And for you to for the Republican Party to say that, look, we are serious about fielding candidates that can win and not be so controversial and not be so divisive. We are going to take a step back from Corey Stewart, and we're going to nominate someone else. And I really believe that it's going to be a referendum on the party.
Okay, so let's move on to Congress. So CD6, which is Bob Goodlatte, retiring Congressman Bob Goodlatte's district. So there's two Democrats vying for that seat. In the 6th, that will be Peter Vosselin of Roanoke and Sergio Coppola of Harrisonburg, are both going to be running there. Neither has run for elected office before. Not sure how I feel about that. Running straight for Congress. I mean, I'm sure there's maybe somebody that's listening to this can tell me who the last person who ran for Congress as a political novice that actually won. I'd like to know who that was. Maybe we'll make a contest out of it. Whoever can provide us with the correct answer to that question by either messaging us on Facebook or emailing info@forvirginia.org, I will send you some lovely For Virginia buttons. If you can tell us who the last congressional candidate to win an election as an electoral rookie was. I'm going to have to do some research, but I'm asking you to do the homework for me because I'm lazy. So also we have the 9th district. Let me get to the 7th first. So Dave Bratt, he of course is the man who overseated Eric Cantor in a surprise election. What was that, 2010, I believe? I can't
yes,
believe
it was.
I can't believe
it was 2010.
That's insane. Just as an aside, Robert Reich, who I love to death. Like, everything that man says, I completely agree with. His statement on the tax bill was awesome. Like, I read his books, watch his movies. I watched his latest movie, Saving Capitalism, and the big problem I had with was there was a section in the middle of it where he sat down in Dave Bratt's office and interviewed Dave Bratt and made him seem like a human being, and I really offended by that. So, but there will be two Democrats that are trying to challenge him, Abigail Spanberger and Dave Ward. Looks like we're heading to a primary in that race. So we'll see how that goes. In the 9th Congressional District, Morgan Griffith, who is the Republican, will also be having a primary as well. I don't have the names in front of me, sorry, but the Republicans will be having a nomination in January. Republican Chaz Haywood, Rockingham County Clerk of Circuit Court, Cynthia Dunbar, RNC member, and Delegate Ben Klein of Rockbridge County are contending. I believe that's actually in the 6th, so I don't mean to be confusing people getting our stuff crossed here. And then Barbara Comstock, the darling of the Congress, who believes just passed the sex harassment legislation or rule, excuse me. It's not actually legislation, but she put a proposal forward to have all members of the House of Representatives go through
and their staff.
Thank you. Harassment training. So she is going to be challenged, of course, and it looks like we have another primary. But this article does not tell me who they actually are, so we'll have to find that out and get back to you. So anyway, so Dave, you want to talk about what's going on in the 2nd congressional race? Full disclaimer, I am finance chairman for Karen Mallard, who is running for the Democratic nomination in CD2. Dave, you want to give us a little background on what's going on with Dave Berlote?
Yes. According to sources, according to an article that Dave Berlote, who was originally going to run for CD2, for those of you who don't know who Dave Berlote is who he was the chairman of the Virginia Beach Democratic Party.
Has he stepped down from that as well?
I've been told that he's planning on running. He wants his seat. He wants to keep that seat. But they are going through, of course. For those of you who don't know, I think maybe the Republicans have to go through it too, but I know the Democrats, we're all going through reorganizing all of our committees. So we're all voting for new leadership in terms of Chesapeake, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. They're all
everywhere in the state, actually. That's a good point. Right. We should probably talk about. So.
Right. So we're all voting, we're all electing new leadership or re-electing membership. And from what I was told, Dave Berlote is trying to keep his seat as the Virginia Beach Democratic chair.
So just as an aside real quick before you get into that, so the Democratic Party of Virginia goes through their leadership elections every 2 years. This is the year. I can tell you that Virginia Beach's deadline to vote was on the 30th. So if you're in Virginia Beach, you can't actually join the party and vote in leadership elections. But I know in Hampton and probably elsewhere in the state, you still have time. You can still pay your dues to join the Democratic Party, still participate in the leadership elections. We need as many people as possible to do this. If you're a progressive, Green Party candidate, socialist, whatever you are, this is our chance to steer the ship left. So if you're not happy with the corporate Democrats, DNC structure, you want to change it, now's the time to do it. So this is our chance. We won't have another chance for 2 years to really push things in the direction that we want. So it's important that everybody listening to my voice right now goes and finds out where their local committee meeting is, pays their dues, get as many people as possible to pay their dues, find out who is in the leadership election, run for treasurer or run for chair if you want to, do whatever you can. I don't want to get into a rant right now, but it's very important that you do this. This is the time. And if we don't do it now, we won't have a chance to really participate or be able to do something about it for another 2 years. So that will actually be after, let me see, it's 2017, so it'll be 2019. So it'll be after the congressional elections, before the next presidential election. So very important that we get out there now and do that. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh no, absolutely. And for you all who live in Chesapeake, the deadline is December 27th to get your application in. Hampton
is on the 12th. So
you're right. He's 100% correct. What you got to remember, folks, is that a lot of times When it comes to selecting candidates, they come from the committee. We know who's going to run for what. It's really hard for an outside person to really get in there and to say, hey, I want to run for an office. Because usually a lot of times folks in the committee have pretty much handpicked who they want to run for what. So just keep that in mind. If you want to make an impact when it comes to your local and state officers and who's running for what, get involved with your local committees. But going back to what we were talking about, the person, from what I was told and from what my sources have been telling me, the person that the DCCC has really been trying to recruit to run against Scott Taylor in CD2 is a naval officer, Elaine Luria. Elaine Luria. And from what I was told is that she at first was not considering running for CD2, for the congressional seat in CD2, but they are putting out a survey asking people what their thoughts of her and what the chances of an opportunity for someone to upend Scott Taylor. Scott Taylor has been doing, to me, this, and I'm saying this from a political strategist perspective. He has been doing an outstanding job of trying to stay middle of the road. In terms of, you see his face on MSNBC. He's willing to take questions from progressives. His town halls are very entertaining. I have to give kudos to the indivisible groups who have been going out, keeping his feet to the fire. They have been doing an outstanding job of keeping Scott Taylor accountable. But the question is that can Karen Mallard, can Elaine, can also my good friend, her name escapes me right now, and I apologize. Sean Brown, my good friend Sean Brown. Can anyone beat Scott? Can does it really matter? Because he has done such a great job of trying to market himself as look, I'm not a Trumpite. As a matter of fact, he has somebody running against him, a young lady, and her name, and I apologize, but her name escapes me as well, is a young lady that's running against Scott Taylor, saying, hey, Scott Taylor is not pushing the Trump agenda. So he's being primaried because there are those in the Republican Party who feel that he's not really pushing the president's agenda, so they want him out of there.
Yeah, and you would be talking about Mary Jones. She's a former supervisor, board of supervisors in not Prince William County, out there past Williamsburg. But yes, she is. She was actually in Hampton this afternoon. I meant to go see her, but things didn't happen quite the way I wanted them to. But yeah, she is challenging him from the right as a Tea Party Corey Stewart darling, and they are trying to primary Scott Taylor, saying that he is not supporting the Trump agenda. And I want to tell you, I don't know anything personally about Elaine Luria. I can tell you what I found out about her on vpap.org. She has some pretty deep pockets. She gave $17,000 to Northam this last election cycle. And so if what you're saying is true, that the D-Trip is supporting her, it sounds to me like more corporatist Democrat tit for tat. She supported Northam for governor with deep pockets. And what I did hear, and I don't know if you can back this up, Dave, is that there has been a series of telephone surveys that have been going around asking questions about not necessarily Elaine in general, but the question of what type of candidate would be best suited to go against Scott Taylor. Scott Taylor, if you don't know, is a Navy SEAL, war hero, I guess you could actually say. Wrote a book, single father. I've met him before. He said he's not like a traditional Republican in that sort of the sense, but if it's a school teacher versus the soldier, or if they think that since Hampton Roads is a Navy town, that somebody with a Navy background, a military background, would be better suited in order to challenge him from a national security standpoint. So That's all I want to say about that. But
well, and for me, and from what people have been telling me, I can concur from what you're saying is that yes, surveys have been going out. People with them asking general questions about who they feel based on personality, based on style. What would be a best fit to go up against Scott Taylor? And to me, that's a very important question. Now, but I also believe that when you look at the numbers, 'cause I'm a numbers guy. When you look at the numbers, when it comes to how Virginia Beach performed, how CD2 performed in general, CD2, I don't care. It has to be the right candidate, but the enthusiasm, the motivation for people to go to the polls, I believe are at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. And I believe that if you have a candidate, be it Mallard, be it Laura,
or Sean,
if the Democratic Party gets behind that person and pushes that person full tilt, I truly believe that we can win CD2 just off of the enthusiasm that you have seen. I mean, we won Virginia Beach, for crying out loud. Ralph Northam won Virginia Beach. No one saw that coming. No one. I don't care. All your a lot of people didn't see
November coming at all.
Right. No one even. They told us. I'm telling you, Mike. I'm telling you, man. I sat in a room and they told us straight up. They told us straight up. You guys will be lucky if you guys get within 1,500 votes of Gillespie in Virginia Beach. That was the goal. The goal was to make it was for Gillespie. They conceded that Gillespie would win Virginia Beach, but they didn't want. They just say it can't be a rout. But in the fact that Ralph was able to win Virginia Beach, I believe all of their prognosticating and their metrics. All that stuff goes out the window now. They have to redo this thing and take a look at these numbers from this past election and say, okay, can we repeat the turnout that we had in 2018? And I absolutely believe that we can. But it's also about the DCCC stepping up and saying, hey, no matter who wins this primary, we're gonna 100% back that person, and I personally like Karen Mallard. I think that she's an outstanding person. Personally, I've gotten a chance to know her over the past 6 months since I was John Bell's campaign manager. So I truly believe that no matter who wins that primary, you're going to have a quality candidate. And it's about the DCCC stepping up and supporting that person, not worried about, okay, well, the person that we wanted didn't win, so now we're going to back away. Because that's the foolishness that they do, Mike.
Well, let me just stop you right there. I mean, I don't want to get into big Karen love fest or anything, so I'm going to stop you right there. But I just want to remind everybody and just step back a bit. So last cycle, 2016. They weren't even going to run a candidate.
We're not.
They had totally just I don't know what the decision. I mean, just again, I don't want to rant, but Sean Brown was the candidate because nobody else decided to get the signatures. She basically just said here, I got the signatures, and bam, she was the candidate. She got no support whatsoever from the party.
Zero.
There's a lot of reasons for that that I'm not going to get into, but she ran a campaign. I don't even know what her fundraising was. It was like $12,000. It was something insane, and she got clobbered as a result of that. But I will not stand by and let the corporate Democrat Party just come in here and do their survey testing to find out if it's feasible for them to run their, appointed candidate that with the military background to run against this guy. No, I'm not going to let that. I mean, I'm going to do everything I can to push Karen to the left and run on a progressive platform. And, I don't think it matters who is in that seat. I think that we're in a wave type of election like we saw in 2017. I think that whoever the candidate that gets in the primary is going to be the winner. And I'm going to make damn sure that it's not going to be another corporatist Democrat with deep pockets and ties to, the power structure that exists in Washington. So anyways, that's my rant. Do you have anything else you want to say before we cut to break, Dave?
I'm with you, brother. We have to. It has to be a candidate that truly believes in progressive issues and is going to push the progressive agenda. I truly believe that without a Tom Perriello, we wouldn't have a Ralph Northam. And I honestly and truly believe that
hashtag Perriello would have won.
Yep. And so you have to have that candidate, and you have to have you have to have that candidate that's willing to push and say and be a champion of the left and be a champion of progressive issues, and not just be willing to tiptoe through the tulips of I'm going to be a centralist. No, it's time to take pride in being a progressive. Now is the time.
We're going to have a segment about the difference between progressive and liberal. I did a speech on it. Anyways, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we're going to go straight into the interview that my friend Aaron did with Elizabeth Guzman about a week ago. Hope you enjoy that. When we come back, we'll close the show out. This is the For Virginia Podcast. Stay tuned. Real quick, bit of housekeeping intro before we do the interview. I want to let you know who Aaron is. It's Aaron Penny. He is the current chair of the Prince William County Democratic Committee Progressive Caucus. And when I asked how he wanted to be introed, he said, just say that he's a fellow progressive doing what he can to make a difference. I know he worked with Elizabeth on her campaign and reached out to him a while back and asked him to sit down with her. And just a quick note, about 3 minutes and 30 seconds into this interview, there's a cut where the recording stops. I don't think I missed too much, but just want to let you know your playback device isn't malfunctioning. There is a cut in the audio, so I apologize for that. Anyways, without further ado, here is Aaron Penny and Elizabeth Guzman.
Hi, this is Aaron Penny with delegate-elect for the 31st District, Elizabeth Guzman. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for the invite, Aaron.
Just had a few questions on what you thought contributed to your success in this past November.
Well, I could say that I had a great group of volunteers. I have a grassroots organization that helped me to knock on doors, starting from the primary where we won in June 13th and then going up to election date in November 7th. We try to do something different. When I decided to run for office, I spent a lot of time going to bluer areas in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, like Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, and I wanted to know what type of organization they are running, and I learned that they were having precinct captains. So what I did is I started recruiting volunteers, and I made these volunteers precinct captains and give them the responsibility to organize within their own precincts.
How do you think we can replicate this in years to come as progressives?
I think in the interview that I had with each one of my precinct captains for this election, one of them was you. So it's like I wanted to do this an organization, something that we don't have to reinvent the wheel anytime there is an election. The purpose of this was to find progressives at each precinct so they could continue to organize for more progressives that will run within the district. So we all are going to work together. They already have built the relationships and the connections within their district, so they could start campaigning for future progressive candidates.
Were there any involvement of organizations that you worked with that were particularly helpful that you wanted to mention?
I was blessed to have at least 30 organizations that were behind me, starting from progressive organizations like Our Revolution and the Progressive Campaign Change Committee, also known as the Elizabeth Warren wing of the Democratic Party. I also have organizations pro-immigrants like CASA in Action. I had New Virginia Majority, and I'm a union member. I was raised in a union household. My dad was a union leader, and I've been a union always when I work in public government, and I'm a part of the union also for public employees. And I have the support of many unions in my race, starting from AFSCME, I have SEIU, UFCW, Unite Here, LAIUNA, all of the unions were helping me. So it's been a great group of organizations, also, progressive organizations that are pro LGBTQ rights, like Equality Virginia. I had Pride Fund. I was pro and I was vocal about having common sense gun regulation. I think that many candidates didn't want to get into that. For me, that was key, especially for my opponent, because his campaign was sponsored by the NRA. So I wanted to hit him on common sense gun regulation, because we had one tragedy that happened within district and he never done anything about it. So I had the organization, I have the Common Sense Gun Violence Organization, CSGNV organization. I had also pro-women's rights organizations like NARAL Pro-Choice. I have Planned Parenthood. So I had a great group of organizations that believe in what I was fighting for.
What advice would you give to people who are interested in running for elected office? I know that you've been, you started your campaign basically a year beforehand. So what advice would you give?
I first could ask them, to try to find support systems in their family, or if it's not within their family, with friends that could help them just to fulfill your responsibilities. In my case, I worked full-time throughout the campaign. I had my children. My youngest is 8 years old, so I definitely had to have conversations with my husband and my mom and my older daughters that helped me out throughout this year. I also wanted them to take this seriously, because all of these races are winnable. And I never look at things that I wanted to only the Democrats to vote for me. I want people to believe in the message that I was sharing with the working class. And I think that's something which resonates with people. But it's a lot of work, You just need to be committed to work hard, to work extensive hours, Monday through Sunday. There's never a break. But if you have the willingness to work hard and to fight for the right reasons, then you could win a race. So I would encourage everybody to, if they wanted to run for office, I make myself available. If they wanted to chat with me, and I can tell them more. But it's believe in what you're fighting for, work hard, and never give up.
And for those not interested in running themselves, do you have any advice?
Yes, I think that one of the things that Bernie Sanders did on his conceding speech, not to the DNC, but the ones for his delegates, was that we needed to continue the revolution. And that's something that I took to my heart, especially because he explained to us how if we're going to stay as an observers, we will never make an impact. So we have to get involved. And he also explained about the importance of running for office at the local level and state level. So that's something that if you don't want to run for office, find a way to get involved within your local committees or your state committees. We need help. We cannot afford to have any more races to be unopposed. We cannot afford to have any commissions or committees with vacant positions where you could play an important role. And you would not imagine how your life, how your different life experiences could help you to play an important role in any of these positions.
It's true. Now, the pre-filing of bills have begun starting on the 20th. Have you had a chance to look at any of them?
I have. It started on the 20th. As a freshman, we have the opportunity to present bills until December 4th. I received invitations from different delegates already who are asking me to co-patron some bills. So some of the ones that I already decided is to definitely increase the larceny charges from $200 to $500. That's something that I believe, because when you see how many people have been just trapped by the criminal justice system, and mainly youth, children, who are teenagers that are already in jail just because they steal a cell phone and then they go to jail. And it's just interesting for me how to see judges just make different sentences for people of color and for white people. So that's something that we need to change. Also, we have another bill that I've been asked to sponsor is the increase of the minimum wage. And that's something that I've been working really hard on my campaign, because that was part of my story coming to this country, because I'm not from here, and that's something that I wanted to fight for. I also wanted to fight for providing driver's license to undocumented citizens. For me, it's a safety issue. And it's just a matter. I think that any immigrant should have the dignity and human right to have an ID. So do we know who they are? Also, I'm thinking about having more special education classrooms in my district, in the Prince William County side of it, just because there's not enough resources for these classrooms and for these teachers. It was sad for me to learn on Monday, actually, we had a meeting with the school board, and for them to tell us that they are working with the same budget since 2009, and the population in Prince William County has grown about 3 times. It was sad. So it's definitely, we need to work about providing more funding for the schools so we can increase teacher pays for our teachers, so we can keep them and decrease the staff turnover. But we also need more resources in the classrooms for the teachers as well, and we need to find a way to defeat the problem in Prince William County, which is overcrowding schools. And health insurance. Definitely, I was forgetting about that. We are definitely fighting to bring back to the table Medicaid for all, and we are very hopeful that now, with being close to the majority, we are the majority now, the Democrats. We're still waiting on 3 recounts, but we hope when those are finished that we could fight again to bring Medicaid for all back to the table, and being able to offer health insurance to 400 working Virginians who live under poverty now.
Yeah. Well, that's really all I wanted to cover. Was there anything else that you wanted to, say to the listeners?
Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the progressive across the country that helped me to win this race. I definitely would not be able to win this race without your support, the support of these listeners that helped me not only here locally but also statewide and outside also of the state. I had some progressives from California, New York, Maryland. Many of them flew to knock on doors for me over here, gave donations, organized fundraisers for me, and I am happy that they choose my race to support me. And this is not just about me, it was about the people, and now I hope I can make them proud once I'm in Richmond.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Dave, this was a very fun time.
I enjoyed myself, brother.
There was a lot that we wanted to get to, including the Alfonso tape. But unfortunately, we try to keep these shows down to about an hour. So that's all the time we've got for this week. We appreciate everyone that's tuned in. Thank you for your support and all your shares. Please check the website, share us on social media, and your financial support is always appreciated.
This is the For Virginia Podcast, episode 25. Please submit your feedback on our website, on Facebook, or by emailing info@forvirginia.org.
If you appreciate the work that we're doing, please consider becoming a sponsor of the show. You can set up a recurring contribution through ActBlue or Patreon. Your contributions will go towards hosting and equipment costs, help us advertise to reach a bigger audience, and allow us to increase our show output. I'd also like to extend an invitation to any social justice warriors or activists active in the Virginia area who would like to bring attention to the work that they are doing or that others are doing. Reach out to me and we'll schedule a time to get you on the show. David, you want to close this out?
And we will continue working hard to bring you the news, information, and analysis to help keep your progressive revolution moving forward in Virginia through 2018. My name is David Washington.
I'm Michael Wade.
Thank you, and we will see you next week.